Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we will be reviewing the wind generator kit from the guys at Motion House. With well-sorted and finished kit parts and a wind speed capability of almost 28 miles an hour, this looks to be a very good system. Time to put it through the SRG's review process and see how it does. So, let's get to it. So let's take a closer look at this Motion House wind generator kit. First thing we'll look at is the main attraction, which is the ducted fan assemblies you get. Of course, you get two of these, one for each side, and these are very large, as you can see from my hand size here. They're pretty big. How big are they? Well, they are, let's see how long they are. About 210 millimeters long, which comes out to, what is that, about 8 inches. And the height on this looks like, let's see, about 130 millimeters high, which comes out to about 5 inches. And the brackets down here, the centers on these, the holes for mounting it, there's 130 millimeters. So that's how we'll be mounting. And yeah, it's a pretty big, pretty big unit here. I'm gonna use my smaller ruler to see what kind of hole we've got that the air is flowing through. And it looks to be around a 97 millimeter diameter, which comes out to be about 3 1/4, maybe an eighth bigger than that. So yeah, very large unit, should be able to move some air. Now the curious thing is, this is not a computer fan or anything like that. This is their own design for the fan. You'll see this is a regular electric motor back here that's attached to the front fan. And we'll go around, let's take a look at the fan. And it is a 6-bladed fan in there. Obviously, I don't know what the pitch is on the blades, but you can see it has a nice rounded tip on it for airflow. And this is the intake part of this ducted assembly. And you can tell by the little arrow over here. So the air is actually flowing out where the motor is, right? So the fan's going to push it into this open cavity here, and then the air will get compressed and the velocity will increase as it exits. So it has it travels like from here as the fan takes it in, and then comes right into here and then hits this part, which starts compressing it. Now, there's also some directional vanes in here they put in here that do two things. It's a directional vane, but it's also a support for the motor and fan assembly inside of this injection molded plastic. And it's kind of a brittle plastic, doesn't bend at all, no flex to it, which is obviously what we want in a ducted fan. Right. There's no numbers on this as far as cubic feet per minute, the air that it moves, but I'll get a wind speed indication off of this thing once I have it up and running and try to give you a better idea of what the capabilities of it are. It has 2 wires coming out, and you can see here, it's got a nice little wire loom that they've zip tied onto the cord, and they got 2 decent sized actually wires coming out of here. And it goes all the way into this plug, which is a 2-pin plug, and we'll look closer at that when we're connecting everything. Right, so not much else to say about it, and they're not that heavy. They feel maybe 2 pounds, maybe. You know, they're pretty light actually. I was surprised that something this big is this light. So I wouldn't worry about the weight of it. Now, we have a controller box that's going to control all this, obviously. And again, I have to mention here, all the stuff that I've gotten from Motion House has such a nice crinkle finish on all their stuff. And it's, the finish is everywhere as far as, in the little tiny nooks and crannies. They really put their best foot forward in trying to give a professional presentation to the product when it comes out of the box. This is an all steel box here, and let's see how big this thing is. It's not very big, 5 inches or about 126 or 7 millimeters as far as the width, and depth runs 110 mil or about 4 1/4 inches. And we have a height of 2 inches or 52 mils, about there. In that general area. Have a nice little switch here to turn it on and off, which you can see it has a little LED light in there, which will obviously indicate the power is on or off. And we have some ventilation on both sides, and we have ventilation on the bottom. And we'll take a little quick look inside of this once we get to that segment to see what the electronics look like, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be nice, like everything I've gotten so far from Motion House. And on the back, where we have a description, you can pause and read that if you want to. It actually has a little description of what it is on the top, and it looks like we have a serial number on the bottom. Of course, we have a USB-B over here. We have a little switch here, which is more than likely some kind of a reset, or maybe puts it in boot mode so we can upgrade the firmware on the box itself. We have a 5.5 millimeter power supply connector, type of DC power supply, and we have got a couple of connectors here that we obviously will be connecting the fans to so we can control it. So yeah, not much else to look at here on the box. Now, we do get a power supply, and this is a kind of a universal power supply. You can see the numbers there. It's 110 to 240 volt, and it puts out volts in DC, and it puts out, let's see, what was that, 12 volts to 10 amps, yeah. So that's what this system requires. Again, the usual 5.5 mil type of DC plug. And what else we get? Brackets. We got to mount these, right? So they give us this bracket. Now this is a cockpit specific bracket. And again, these are all very nice units. They come in at 4 millimeters. Well, let's see what that is. That's 5 millimeters. 5 millimeter thick. Maybe just a hair, maybe more like 4. But yeah, very thick steel plate here. And again, the finish is impeccable. It's just really nice everywhere you look. And these are 2 wings that fit a center plate that looks like this. Let's get this out of the way. And this is made cockpit specific, sorta, kinda. You know, the reason I say that is because this, if you go to their website, and I'm gonna show you a couple of pictures of it here, this is sitting on top of the flat plate that comes with the R seats, all right, their cockpits, and this is the RS1. So it fits on top of that flat plate, but if you have another cockpit with a flat plate, then obviously you can mount this. You may have to drill a hole or 2 in it to get it to happen, but you can do that. And then mount your wheelbase on top of this, because if you look at these holes here, and the first one pattern I recognize is the triangle of the Fanatec wheelbases, and it also shows a Logitech mounted, so obviously it will take that, and I'm sure a Thrustmaster too. And I'm guessing these elongated holes here may be for mounting to the actual plate or wheelbase plate that's on your particular cockpit. Now, on my cockpit, I have a front mount type deal, so I won't be using this. Now, and again, it depends on the width here. It probably wouldn't fit in the PX1 anyway because of the width, and I'm pretty sure of that. Yeah, it's only like 383 millimeters wide from this side to this outside metal plate. So yeah, I won't be using this. But it does have a feature that you won't have when you mount it to profile. And I'm going to show you the holes here. These are the side mounting holes, rather. And you can see the threads in there. Those are M6 threads. And I'll be able to mount that in a piece of profile like this. All right, so I have an upright, my wheelbase upright. Of course, the wheelbase upright on a P1X is a 40 by 120, and this is a 4080. But same thing. I'll be mounting it like this into one of these channels using these 2 6mm bolts, and of course, corresponding T-nuts in that channel. So I won't be able to tilt this thing. If you look at this bracket, it has the mounting hole, and then it has a slot for tilting. And that's so we can put this on here and rotate that fan back and forth like this if we want to. Well, that's really unnecessary if you can get the height of your fan correct. And I will be able to on the wheelbase uprights that I have on my P1X. So that's not going to be an issue. Now, so again, it's just one of those things that I'm not going to have to worry about with my P1X because it's tall enough. Now, maybe you have some profile cockpit or something like that that might not be tall enough for you to get this to where it hits you in the chest or face or wherever you want it to hit you. But you won't have that ability to twist it. But there's probably other ways I'm already thinking about other ways to mount this besides the brackets here. Anyway, so then the fan will mount, get this out of the way, on top of the bracket, and like this. We've got one threaded hole here, little threads in it there, and then we have 2 slots. I'm not sure what the other slot's for, but yeah, this won't fit that because the spread on this, on the centers of those holes are made for the outside slot over here, the long one. So once that's mounted to the height I want, right, then all I got to do is tilt it into where I want it to hit me, right? So is there enough, well, actually it's gonna pivot this way or this way. So it's either going to be flat, straight at, which obviously you're not going to have it like that because you usually want these tilted in towards you, at least I do. So it'll be tilted in towards me, some kind of angle. I don't know where it's going to be yet. But these wings will work for mounting. Right. And also, these wings sticking out like that may cause an issue if you have a monitor mount, a triple monitor mount or something like that, that mounts along the side, each side of your rig. So that could cause an issue too, but we'll see how I do with it once I have it mounted. But I think I'm going to be okay. All right. But again, there's other ways to get things mounted, right? So what else we're going to look at here? Let's look at the cables here for the fans themselves. Very nice units. Again, the stuff that I get from Motion House is just really well done. Shrink wrap where it should be. We have a dual plug system here, and this will plug into the fan plug, these plugs, right? Because they're both rectangular. Then we have these other plugs over here, 2 of them. And those are going to be plugging into our controller box. You can see they're kind of a vertical plug there, and that's what these are, vertical plugs. Even though I haven't turned sideways, one of them goes in like that. Nice little locks on the plugs too. Again, just very nice stuff when you look at it. The sheathing on these cables is very nice. It doesn't have anything indicating that it is yielded in the little lettering on here. I've actually checked that out already. But yeah, it's doesn't have anything to indicate that, but it is ROHS certified. So anyway, and 3.5 meters of this cable. So you can mount this box anywhere you want to just about, and still have plenty of cable here to get your fans located where you need them. Which I really love that, you know, when a manufacturer gives you plenty of cable. It's much better to have a lot of it than having not enough of it. It's kind of frustrating when you don't have enough. Right. So we also get this here, and this is a USB-A to USB-B plug. Typical what we see in kits of different electronics. And this has a nice embedded ferrite cores in it. So I like to see that anytime I see a USB cable. So they've actually got some nice ones here. I like that for EMI, RFI mitigation. And we do have a couple of packs of stuff. We got some zip ties. And we've got some hardware. And this hardware obviously is for mounting our brackets, right? And I don't know if I'll be able to use any of this and not to mount to my profile. But yeah, it is, you know, it probably fits an R seat, RS1 just perfectly. All right, so that's about it. That's all you get in the kit. And yeah, what we'll do next is go ahead and start looking at how we're going to mount this stuff. And we'll also do the look inside and yeah, get this thing up and running and see what it is capable of. Oh, before we go, here's the cable that the electrical cable I was telling you about. This is a European or Asian 220 cable, right? It's a nice cable. It's got the ground on the bottom and the top, but I don't need this for this power supply. Where's the power? There it is. Because I'm just going to use a regular 110 volt plug on this because again, this is universal and we don't have to use 220 on this system. Very nice out of the box that we don't have to worry about any kind of step-up transformer. Right, so we'll get to the next segment. So now let's take a look inside of the Motion House wind generator controller box. It's 4 screws on each side of the box to take it off. And again, inside you can see it's coated just as well as it is on the outside. Like I've been saying throughout any Motion House videos, they really do a professional job on their presentation of their kits as far as all the finish and everything. And that continues on inside here to their circuit board that's running everything. Obviously, we have the 5.5 millimeter DC end here, and we can see that goes in and goes over to the power input on the board, and the power is controlled with the switch over here, obviously for on and off. And yeah, just a tidy board here. It has MH Wind over here. So obviously that's their own custom circuit board that they've come up with. And yeah, nothing to complain about in here. Just, again, very neat, very tidy job, very professional looking. As far as this goes, yeah, I can't really complain. And there's not much else to see in here. It's just a circuit board basically with some, obviously we can see the internals of our connectors. But yeah, very nice indeed. So that's the look inside, very short look inside of the Motion House wind generator controller box. Now I have my bracket ready to mount to my profile so that I can mount the fans themselves, of course. Now, there was a little bit of an issue here because of the way that I'm mounting this bracket. Now remember, this bracket is supposed to be like a winglet that hangs off the side of this bracket here, this big one. And this big one is intended for if you have a flat mount for your wheelbase mount on your cockpit. Now, if you don't, like I'm not running one in this review, I have a servo motor mounted, and it's a front mount on my P1X. I can't really use this bracket. But it's really intended for the R seat, and specifically the R seat one. If you go to a website, it shows shots of that Thrustmaster wheel mounted to it. So a Logitech Thrustmaster, and we can even see the 3 triangle pattern of the Fanatec wheels on here too. So that's what's really intended for, not mounting it to profile. So I had to make some modifications. Now I don't know if in the future if they're going to offer something like this, I don't know. But This bracket itself, and I'll show you a shot of it here, has threaded holes in it, M6 threads, that we saw in the closer look. Now, the problem is when you screw in a bolt into those M6 threads, and then you're going to put a T-nut on the other end of that. Once you screw the bolt all the way in, you can't screw it anymore to bring the T-nut to tighten up. So the T-nut's just, in other words, you can't get the bracket tight against the profile. It's just not going to work. Be able to, I've tried it a couple of different ways, it didn't work. So the solution is to go ahead and get our bench vise out, put some painter's tape on it so we don't mar our finish, and yeah, just drill out the threads themselves. I'm not drilling new holes here. I'm just not really chasing the threads because that would be with a tap, but I'm just drilling the holes with a drill bit that's 6 millimeters in diameter, or 1/4 of an inch. And that's just enough to take the threads out of that hole. And then of course, once we're done, we just clean up our mess that we made with all those metal shavings, and this is the result. Now we have our bolts in here, and they can move freely back and forth, so I can actually go ahead and tighten it down like I would normally affix something to an 80 profile, no matter what it is, a bracket, some kind of peripheral. Yeah, that's the way to do it. So not that big of a deal, but something I wanted to show you guys that, yeah, I had to make that modification so that it worked in my situation. Of course, your situation may be different, and it's probably another way to get this done, maybe, but it seemed like the most straightforward way to me. So now we're going to take these brackets over to the P1X platform and get them mounted and see what they look like. As you can see, we now have the brackets mounted on both sides. Got one over there too. And yeah, it worked out great. This went just like I thought it would. Now I was very easily able to get my T-nuts into the channel in here and tighten everything down. Now, one thing I did find that once I had the T-nuts in the channel and the nuts, or rather the bolts started, that you could still move this up and down. So there is some cant available on this because of the lash or the play that's in the channel itself with the T-nuts. So yeah, you can still tilt this up or down a little bit. Not as much as you can on the original bracket they intended this to be mounted to, but still it's there. And we also have, you can see right here, a threaded hole, and that's going to take our fan. See, I'm losing my focus there. That's going to take the fan bolt on one side of the flange, and then we'll be out here in this slot on the other side. And we'll grab this fan. And as you can see, there's the mounting bracket on the bottom, 2 holes, and it's just going to sit up here like this. And then once it's bolted down, then of course we'll be able to, along that groove right there, or that slot, we can cant it towards the driver, like that. And this height is good here. This is about 5 millimeters from the top on the bracket. Get this back off. So the height is good to hit me right about in the upper chest and lower neck area. And that's typically where I want my wind hitting me, because that's where I get the hottest, in the chest area, and that keeps me cooler. So yeah, this is going to sit up here just like that, and we'll be good to go. And they are big, aren't they? These are big units, but it's mostly just the housing is so big. And I can't wait to see how much air this thing puts out. But yeah, so we'll get everything set up now. We'll go ahead and get these fans themselves mounted and come back and see what that looks like. So we're back with the fans securely mounted to their brackets, and I used the hardware included in the kit, which was this Phillips head stainless steel screw, and they have a washer and a nut that goes on the bottom. And then on this side over here, we had, which is really the pivot point, we have another Phillips head that goes into the threaded hole that's in this bracket here. And I was able to, using the slot over here, I was able to get this aimed correctly. I don't know how well this is going to look on the video, but we'll try to show it. And there it is. Yeah, this is going to shoot right at the upper chest, neck area when I'm driving. So, and I've been sitting in the seat and dialed them in to where I wanted them. And of course, we have the other one mounted over there. Now we just have to get the cables, and you can see I just kind of have it sitting over here on these Wave Italy pedals at the moment. But yeah, we're going to get this stuff cabled up, and yeah, so we can start our testing. And when we come back, we should have all that ready to go. So I've got everything cabled up, and I thought I'd give you guys a quick look at just how everything hooked up. It's not very pretty, obviously, because here at the SRG, I'm always testing things, and yeah, so the cables usually look like a spider's nest. But anyway, here's the power brick down here, and remember, this can take either 110 or 15 or a 220 volt. It doesn't matter, automatically switches over. so we don't have to worry about a step-up transformer like we use on this one, on the 4UN kit from Motion House. And speaking of which, this is the controller box for the 4UN 4 actuator kit from Motion House. And yeah, I've got this controller for the fan system sitting on top of it because I'm testing it also. And look, the finishes actually match too. Pretty neat. Anyway, pretty simple stuff here. USB-B on the back. Then we have our power connector right here. And we have our connectors for our fan that are going to control our fans. And those are the power connectors to those. And if you notice, there's not a left or right designation for these connections, so it doesn't matter. And that would indicate to me that there is no throttling for left or right of each individual fan, like if you're going around a curve or something like that. So yeah, there's going to be throttling for both in tandem at all time, but not a separate fans, or it would be labeled left and right. So go around to the front here, and I have it already connected and ready to go. So I will just go ahead and turn this on. You guys see what it looks like. Yeah, not much there. Nice and clean though. Nice clean look to it. And yeah, so we got it all cabled up. We're ready to go. So it's time to get into the cockpit and do some testing. So let's take a look at the MH Servicer app that will run your wind generator kit from the guys at Motion House. And I've already got it installed. Very simple procedure to install it, just like any little app you would do on Windows 10. So I didn't go through that, but we'll just go ahead and bring it up and test this system out to make sure everything's working properly. You can see a little detecting devices window popped up. It found it. And now we have the actual application. Now you guys might have seen this if you saw my review on the Motion House Motion Gear 2UN seat mover review. But now we're testing the wind. I'm going to go over here and over the test tab, hit enable. And you see we've got a row. And now you saw how it went back to the wind tab. It's a default behavior. I don't know why it does that when I hit test. But anyway, I'm going to go back over here. It might do it because it needs to be enabled here to also to test it. But you can't do any tuning here. You have to be in game to do the tuning. And we will get to a segment on that later on. So I'm going to go back to test. And you can see I can do pitch, heave, and all that stuff for the motion systems from Motion House. But we're interested in the bottom one here, the wind. And I'm going to have a cut over to the Kestrel wind meter that I have so we can actually see the performance of this. And there's a slider here, and all we got to do is move it. You can move it with the arrows like this. And you can see it started. And I'm starting to get some wind register on here. Now this is going to get loud when I get to 100%. And yeah, I mean, 2 ducted fans at this size, pushing the kind of air that it can, it's going to get loud. I might have to turn that down a little bit. So yeah, this is not a quiet system. If you're looking for quiet, this is not the system for you. If you're looking for power, this is the system. So, and we'll talk more about that as we go along. So right now I'm at 3.9 miles an hour. And I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead to the full blast. And I might, again, have to turn this down a little bit. Let's see what this puppy's capable of. So here we go. Now I'll go full. I don't know about you guys, but I think I saw 27.8 miles an hour, this meter. And this is miles an hour, by the way, so it's not kilometers per hour. So 27.7, I mean, we're pushing almost 28 miles an hour of a wind stream out of these ducted fan units. That's a lot in anybody's book, I think. And of course, it is loud. And you might imagine, yeah, it would be. But here's another thing. I've already been testing this and driving it. And I found that with the volume I usually run on my car volume, it's not so bad as far as the air is. And not only that, you don't have to run these things at 27 plus miles an hour. You can tune it to where it only gets up to like 20 or something like that. And it's much quieter when it gets into that realm. And we'll talk more about that, like I said, once we get to it. But I just wanted to test it out and make sure everything looks good. And it does. So we'll just go ahead and get on to the next segment. So here we are in iRacing. We're going to do a little tuning session real quick. And you're looking at the MH Servicer application. And yeah, this thing it gives you a graphical representation. This curve will change as you modify the settings up here. We have the default settings right now. And I'll make sure I apply those because I had to change them back because I've been messing with this. And we'll just go ahead and take off. First off, I guess before I do that, let's look at the main controls here. Power, we've got minimum speed, maximum speed, and gamma. Gamma is just kind of a tweak there to when these things come on. Now for power it's 100%. For minimum speed it's 0. So as soon as I start moving the car, the fan should start. And max speed is 300. That's kilometers an hour too, by the way. And I'm in miles per hour, so it's going to be a little bit different for what my speedometer says. But yeah, this is basic stuff that we'll be changing this in a minute just to show you how all this stuff works. But right now, let's take off. And I've got my wind meter up here, and let's see if we get some wind as soon as I start leaving the pit here. Yep, as soon as I started moving forward, I started getting airflow. It looks like, what, about 3, maybe 4 miles an hour. And I can't see this very well because I got it on the cameras where you guys can see it, so I might be a little off on the miles per hour statements when I'm looking at it and trying to figure out what it is. All right, so let's go ahead and get some speed up and see how fast this thing gets up to. And I'll read off my speedometer here before I have to hit the brakes. So that was 123 before I had to hit the brakes. And this car will go around, on this track, this car goes to about 158 or so, almost 160. Should get a little more speed on this straight, so let's see what happens there. And you're going to hear the fans coming up too, as far as the noise. So that's 40, 45. That's about 17 or so. Okay. So it's not going to get up to we saw 27 miles per hour before in the testing. It's not going to get up to that with these current settings that I have because of the speed setting. But you may not want 27 miles an hour wind speed on you. And I don't have these directed on me right now. I'm going to wait till I'm in my driving session when I don't have to talk, and then I'll have them pointed at me, and then we'll see how good the wind flow is there. We'll use the hair meter for that because I'm going to have motion on, and I don't think the wind meter won't be able to pick it up right if I'm moving around. All right, so I'm going to get ready to go down this straight here and see what the maximum speed we get. So this is going to take a couple laps to do this, and then I'm going to change the settings so I can get full speed, because I'm not going to get full speed. I'll probably get up to 20 something maybe. Let's see how that works out. We're getting ready to hit the straight now. Okay, here we go. All right. See what kind of speed I can get out of this thing. Okay, that was 154. I think that was what, almost 20 maybe? So I wasn't getting a full speed there. But here's what I can do, and that might be fine. Actually, with it blowing on me, that's probably going to be plenty of air on me. But I want to show you guys the max on this. So I'm going to go up here and change this. Minimum speed I'm going to leave the same, but I am going to change the max speed to where I get 100% up here. I'm going to leave 100% up here, but I'm going to roll this back down to like 200 clicks or kilometers. So I'm going to go back, and you see my curve changing here? It's staying straight, but the 100% is going to come on. Our speed's down here. The 100% is going to come on sooner. So I'm going to put it down to 200. Well, I'll tell you what, let's just take it down to 165. And we can use these arrows to micro adjust, which is nice. I'm going to apply that. So my curve has changed. Now at 165 miles an hour, I'll have 100%. So we might be able to see more wind now. And it's going to get louder too, by the way, because this thing, when it's pushing full speed, it is very loud. So here we go. All right. It's coming up quicker now. So yeah, I saw 27 something. I'm not sure what that was. So yeah. So you can see how loud that is at full speed. It's very, very loud. That's over 27 miles an hour of wind. I doubt most people are going to need that kind of wind velocity. So yeah, I think on the very straights, I think 20 is going to be good for me, but I'm going to go ahead and go down the straight. Okay, again, over 27 miles an hour. These things are powerful, man. They can put some wind out. Yeah, I tell you what, it's just amazing how much power these things have. All right, so here they go. Was it 27 and a half? I tell you, I got a feeling this thing could probably get up to 28 in the right conditions. But boy, listen to that! Listen to that sound. Now, remember, I've got the motor on this car is way down, so I can talk. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I run it a lot louder when I'm actually running in the car normally, and you'll see that once I'm actually in the car driving, just doing a driving session, not talking. So I'm going to change this back a bit so it doesn't go. It's just making too much noise. So I'm going to go back up to. I'm going to leave it at 230. Let's try 230. Oops, that was a gamma berry. Wrong thing. Now if I change the gamma, it's just going to make the curve. Watch when I do the slider. See how it bows? It's going to make that power. See how the power's coming up quicker? Because this is the power over here. See that bow rise up that way. So it just brings the power on quicker. So it spins up quicker, that's all. So that's personal taste, whatever you think you want. Stock or default was 1.0, I think. Yeah, just 1. But I'm going to push that back to I'm going to do 235 kilometers an hour. And I bet you on the straight coming up, I'll be able to hit that pretty easily. So let's see what happens. All right. Here we go. Looking for the straight. See how they don't come up as quick? So you have complete control over the airflow and, of course, noise levels based on your airflow, which is pretty nice. I like this app. It's easy to get things tuned the way you want them to. So let's go ahead and hit the straight. Get up to speed. See if we can get that 27. Yep, 27. So right in there is a sweet spot for this car to get to full speed. But I don't have these fans all the way up against me as far as the angle, and I'm going to do that next in the driving segment where I don't have to talk, and then I'll have motion too, so I won't have my meter, so maybe my hair will kind of give you the idea how much air is coming out. But I'm going to put it so it will do 27 miles an hour on full speed going down the straight, and I think that's a sweet spot. I don't want it to go 27 miles when I go the back straight. So again, it's a noise thing. I'm going to have the volume of the car pull back up too, so that'll be relative to the fan noise. So it's just another experiment when I'm driving to see how much of an issue it is as far as noise, because obviously at full speed, these guys are making some, they're not quiet. End of the day, that's all there is. But you wouldn't expect something putting out that kind of air velocity to be quiet now, would we? Especially with a small rotor or propeller that we're using here. So yeah, when we come back, we'll just go ahead and do a driving session and see how that works out. So here we are at Sebring in the Ferrari 488 GT3 for my racing. And I'm going to do some driving here and just talk about the things I was thinking about when I was driving the car. And I wanted to drive how I normally do, pushing hard, not trying to pay attention to a wind meter like we were doing in the tuning session, how much speed we were getting out of this and listening to the noise. So here we are. I've got this thing tuned, and it's, as you saw in the tuning session, it's pretty easy to, per track and car, get it tuned to where if you want to, get 100% power just about anywhere you want to on the track. I've got this set up to, I get 100% just towards the end of this long straight that's coming up right now. And that's the longest straight in Sebring, and it's before it turns 17, before we come out of 17 and come onto the start-finish line portion of the straight there. So this is going to get up, and you can watch my hair flowing here. It gets flappier and flappier as I'm going down here. And yeah, you can see it's blowing pretty good. And if you saw, again, the tuning segment where we did the live tuning session, you know that I'm pushing upwards of 28 miles an hour of wind out of these things towards the end there, or at 100% throttle on the fan system. And that is something to behold, really. It's a very powerful system. I have a system I've been using for a long time from Sim Racing Studio, but it's not as powerful as this. This thing just has got a lot of grunt to it, as you might imagine. Of course, it has more noise too, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, and this gives you the sensation of speed very well here, as far as when you're getting up to speed and then the speed falls back off because of the beams of air that you've got hitting on both sides of you here. And Yeah, it's just one of those things you have to do to understand the effect it has when it's real strong like that. And yeah, again, just having a blast here with this thing. And not only that, but the side effect of this is it keeps you very cool. Instead of having a big 26-inch fan off to the side, which I used to have before I got these kind of fan systems mounted, and had a remote on it so I could, just hit the fan and make it go high, low, or medium, whatever I needed. But it still is nowhere as effective as this is. And not only this, but again, we're getting acceleration of the airspeed as we accelerate the car, which gives you a more sensation of speed in your simulation. It just gives you more immersion in general, which I really like. Now, of course, the noise goes up here when this happens. And everybody has a different tolerance level for the noise of these motors in the air being moved. And of course, I can't tell you if you will like this or not. It didn't bother me at all, really. Because I'm running with the motor at a decent level too when I'm racing or I'm pushing hard like this, when the fans come up, yes, I could hear them and I could hear the air, but at the same time you're getting hit with this air. So it kind of complements itself, if you will. And I'm going to go down this straight here as we turn into this straight, and I'm going to let you guys listen to the fans go all the way up from this to the end. So here we go. So yeah, there was the max at 100% before I got to my braking zone. And you could see the slow build up of the power there, which is very smooth in this system, by the way. It's not abrupt at all. It doesn't skip around like you got a little bit and all of a sudden, boom, it comes on real hard. It's very good. It has a good finesse to it as far as coming up and then ramping back down. So I didn't have any problem with that. And I was looking for that because I've been around systems before that did do that, where it just wasn't, the controller board just wasn't able to handle it as smoothly as I thought it should be. And this one does. Motion House has got this thing tuned. They really do. They've done a good job with this. And so the noise factor here is just one of those things that, when I got my engine noise and that noise, it doesn't bother me a bit. I mean, it's just part of the experience and the immersion, really. Even though I'm in a 10-top, right? And of course, open wheel car, you have a lot more wind buffeting than you will in a 10-top. Even though in a 10-top car, when they get up to speeds of over 150 miles an hour, they can feel the buffeting effect on that car if they can't feel it in their face. And usually they have these vents coming in these big tubes, 4-inch, 5-inch tubes, that are blowing on them also, venting outside air into the cabin. So they can sense that also. But yeah, overall, this is just a fun system to have. As far as noise tolerance, that's totally subjective. That's, I don't really know how to quantify that for somebody. You just have to have it on there and see what you like or don't like. And remember, you don't have to run this thing at full speed. I mean, you can just run it at half speed and you still got great airflow out of this thing. And, like I said, it's up to the individual what you want to do. And by the way, another big plus to this system is it keeps you cool when you're driving. It really does a great job at that too. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and get to the next segment. Final thoughts on the wind generator kit from the guys at Motion House. Out of the box, this kit looks and feels like a top shelf unit. Well thought out and executed. The attention to detail is quite evident everywhere that you look here. The ducted fans have a proper looking motor and fan inside the injection molded housings. The controller box has a professional looking finish on both the external and internal parts, sporting a well sorted connection and power button layout. Once I had the controller box open, here again you see that these guys know what they are doing. A single proprietary circuit board, and wiring that makes everything look neat and tidy. The mounting bracket system is made for a flat deck wheelbase mount solution, with slots to allow the user to dial in a proper angle to suit their needs. I didn't have too much trouble adapting the side brackets so I could mount them to my P1X profiles. I would like to see a different mounting solution for Motion House to accommodate this type of deployment. Once I had everything mounted and all cables attached, it was very easy to test the system with the Motion House MH Server tuning application, which showed a wind speed of over 27 miles per hour, or around 43.5 kilometers per hour. I also had no issues with quickly getting the settings I liked for the car I was driving. This is a very powerful wind system. It will give you the sensation of increasing speed when driving a car. It has the capability to provide airflow right as the car starts moving, with a smooth increase in power without any gaps. Now, with all this power, you will get loud wind noise at the upper limits of this system. I believe this does a good job of simulating an actual race car at speed as far as the wind noise is concerned. Of course, you do not have to run the system at full power, and the noise levels will diminish accordingly. My personal preference was to run the fans at full power down the straights, with it falling off through the slower parts of the track. There's nothing quite like the sensation of an almost 28-mile-an-hour airstream hitting you on both sides. And I want to mention here that the cooling benefit you get with this system is also very good. At $230 for the kit plus shipping, I do think you get what you pay for here. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.